Today, we're exploring a chilling case from the remote village of Mahagaon in Gadchiroli, Maharashtra, India. A place where family ties turned deadly. This is the story of the Kumbhare family poisoning, a series of murders that shocked a community and revealed the dark undercurrents of resentment and greed. Let's start at the beginning, with the rising tension that set the stage for tragedy. In the heart of Maharashtra's Gadchiroli district lies Mahagaon, a small village in Aheri Taluka, surrounded by dense forests and far from the bustle of city life. It's a place where life moves slowly, governed by agricultural rhythms and deep-rooted family traditions. Gadchiroli itself is known for its tribal communities and, unfortunately, its history of Naxalite insurgency, which often keeps the area isolated and under-resourced. But in 2023, this quiet corner of India became the backdrop for a horrifying family saga that unfolded over just a few short weeks. At the center of the story was the Kumbhare family, a seemingly ordinary household rooted in farming and local ties. Shankar Kumbhare, in his late 50s, was the patriarch, a hard-working farmer who managed the family's modest land holdings. His wife, Vijaya, also in her 50s, was the homemaker, known for her role in maintaining family harmony and handling daily chores. They had two children, Roshan, their son in his mid-20s, who helped with the farm work, and Komal Dahagaonkar, their married daughter who lived nearby but often visited. Rounding out the close-knit circle was Varsha Uraid, Vijaya's sister, who frequently stayed over and was treated like part of the immediate family. The family lived in a simple home in Mahagaon, where extended relatives were always welcome, or so it seemed. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Property disputes are common in rural India, where land is not just an asset but a lifeline. The Kumbhares were entangled in one such conflict over a 4-acre ancestral plot. Vijaya advocated for equal distribution among her siblings, including her brother Pramod Ramteke. Pramod's wife, Rosa Ramteke, a 36-year-old relative by marriage, saw things differently. Rosa, who lived nearby, believed the land should go primarily to Pramod, as the only son, fueling quiet resentment that would later explode into something far more sinister. Adding to the mix was Sanghamitra Kumbhare, 22, Roshan's wife and a recent addition to the family. Sanghamitra was no ordinary village bride. She was an educated agricultural scientist from Akola, about 300 kilometers away. Her marriage to Roshan in 2022 was arranged, as is customary in many Indian families, but it quickly soured. Reports suggest Sanghamitra faced emotional and physical harassment from her in-laws. She felt trapped, isolated from her own family, and overwhelmed by the expectations of her new role. Tragically, this marital discord had already claimed a life. In April 2023, Sanghamitra's father died by suicide, reportedly distraught over his daughter's unhappy situation. This loss deepened Sanghamitra's bitterness, planting seeds of revenge. Case began innocuously enough on September 20, 2023, when Shankar and Vijaya suddenly fell ill. They complained of severe symptoms, tingling in their limbs, excruciating lower back pain, headaches, blackened lips, and a heavy, unresponsive tongue. At first, it looked like a bad case of food poisoning, perhaps from something they ate at home. They were rushed to a local hospital in Aheri, but their condition worsened rapidly. Doctors transferred them to facilities in Chandrapur and then Nagpur for advanced care, but nothing seemed to help. Shankar passed away on September 26th, followed by Vijaya the next day. The village mourned, attributing the deaths to some mysterious illness or perhaps contaminated water. Common in rural areas, but the nightmare was just starting. Over the next few weeks, similar symptoms struck other family members. Komal, who had been helping care for her parents, began experiencing the same pains. Roshan followed suit, and even Varsha, who had been visiting Rosa's home, showed signs of distress. The crime scene wasn't a single dramatic location, but the everyday spaces of the Kumbhare home, the kitchen where meals were prepared, the well from which water was drawn, and the family dining area where trust was unknowingly betrayed. No blood, no weapons, just ordinary food and drink turned lethal. As the deaths mounted, 5 in total by mid-October, the community buzzed with fear and speculation. Whispers of black magic or a curse spread through Mahagaon, a place where superstitions still hold sway alongside modern life. Neighbors avoided the Kumbhare house, and local leaders called for answers. The public reaction was one of shock. In a tight-knit village, such a string of losses felt personal. Media outlets picked up the story, dubbing it the mystery deaths of Gadchiroli, drawing parallels to other unexplained family tragedies in India. The police entered the picture around October 11th, after Komal's death raised red flags. Gadchiroli, Superintendent of Police Nilotpal, formed 4 specialized teams to investigate, spreading out across Maharashtra and even into Telangana. Initial autopsies were inconclusive, showing no obvious toxins, which pointed to something more sophisticated than common poisons. Doctors at the hospitals noted the symptoms resembled heavy metal poisoning, but confirming that required forensic expertise. Early challenges plagued the investigation. Conflicting reports from family members muddled the timeline. Some said the illnesses started after a shared meal. Others blamed external factors like pesticides from the farm. Witnesses were uncooperative at first. Grief-stricken relatives, including Rosa and Sanghamitra, gave vague statements, perhaps to protect themselves or out of denial. Sanghamitra, in particular, was present during much of the caregiving but showed no symptoms herself, which initially went unnoticed amid the chaos. Evidence was scarce. There were no fingerprints on a murder weapon because the weapon was invisible, mixed into food and water. The remote location meant limited forensic resources. Samples had to be sent to labs in Nagpur and beyond, delaying results. Community pressure added another layer. With Naxalite activity in the area, police had to balance sensitivity to local fears while probing deeply. Public outcry grew as rumors of foul play intensified, putting the investigators under scrutiny to deliver quick answers. Family reactions were mixed. Surviving relatives, like the family driver Rakesh Madhavi, who also fell ill but recovered, expressed bewilderment. Pramod Ramteke, Rosa's husband, was questioned but not immediately implicated. The broader community held vigils and demanded justice, while online discussions on social media speculated wildly, from supernatural causes to organized crime. Yet, as the police dug deeper, patterns emerged. All victims had consumed items prepared or handled by certain family members. This shifted the focus inward, toward those closest to the deceased. By mid-October, the tension reached a boiling point. The investigation revealed internet searches for poisons on devices linked to the household, and whispers of a conspiracy began to surface. What started as a medical mystery was morphing into a deliberate act of betrayal. But to understand the full horror, we need to look at the incident itself, the calculated steps that led to these deaths. By early October 2023, the Kumbhare family in Mahagaon village, Gadchiroli, was unraveling. 5 members, Shankar, Vijaya, Roshan, Komal, and Varsha, were dead within 20 days, struck down by a mysterious illness that baffled doctors and terrified the community. What looked like a tragic accident was about to be revealed as a chilling conspiracy. This is the heart of the Kumbhare poisoning case, the moment when hidden grudges turned into calculated murder. The crime unfolded between September 20th and October 15th, 2023, in the Kumbhare family's modest home, a single-story structure typical of rural Maharashtra. The house was a hub of activity, with meals prepared in a shared kitchen, water drawn from a common well, and family members coming and going. It was here, in these everyday spaces, that the murders took place, not with knives or guns, but with a silent, invisible killer. A heavy metal poison, likely thallium or arsenic, mixed into food and water. The symptoms were consistent across all victims: tingling limbs, blackened lips, severe pain, and cardiorespiratory failure. Each fell ill days apart, creating the illusion of a spreading illness rather than a coordinated attack. The first two fall were Shankar and Vijaya, the family's pillars, on September 26th and 27th. They had eaten a meal at home before collapsing with unbearable pain. Doctors initially suspected food poisoning, possibly from contaminated grains or water, a common issue in rural areas. But as Roshan, Komal, and Varsha followed, dying on October 8th, 11th, and 15th respectively, the pattern became undeniable. The crime scene wasn't a single moment, but a series of deliberate acts spread over weeks, with poison administered in small, lethal doses to avoid suspicion. According to police reports, the perpetrators even accompanied victims to hospitals, offering poisoned water disguised as herbal medicine to ensure their plans succeeded. Two other victims nearly joined. The death toll. Rakesh Madhavi, the family's driver, and a visiting relative, drank water from the Kumbhare home and fell ill with similar symptoms. Both survived after intensive treatment, but their illnesses provided critical clues. Rakesh later recalled accepting a glass of water from a family member during a routine visit, a detail that would prove pivotal. As the body count rose, the Gadchiroli police, led by Superintendent Nilotpal, intensified their efforts. By October 11th, after Komal's death, they were certain this was no accident. Forensic tests from Nagpur confirmed high levels of a heavy metal poison, possibly thallium, known as the poisoner's poison for its colorless, odorless properties. Thallium is notoriously hard to detect without specialized tests, explaining why initial autopsies found nothing. The police traced the poison's likely source to Telangana, over 300 kilometers away, suggesting premeditation and access to restricted substances. Enter the key suspects: Sanghamitra Kumbhare and Rosa Ramteke. Sanghamitra, Roshan's 22-year-old wife, was an unlikely killer at first glance. Educated and soft-spoken, she held a degree in agricultural science, which gave her knowledge of chemicals and access to research tools. Her involvement came to light when investigators noticed she was the only family member present during the victim's final moments who remained unaffected. During hospital visits, Sanghamitra had asked doctors about poison detection, a question that raised eyebrows in hindsight. Police also found internet searches for undetectable poisons and thallium effects on a device linked to her, conducted weeks before the first deaths. Rosa Ramteke, 36, Vijaya's sister-in-law, emerged as Sanghamitra's accomplice. Rosa's motive was tied to a long-standing dispute over a 4-acre ancestral property. As the wife of Pramod, Vijaya's brother, Rosa wanted the land solely for her family, believing the Kumbhare's push for equal division cheated her husband. Her role became clear when survivors recalled her offering water and food during hospital transfers, including to Varsha, who died shortly after consuming what Rosa claimed was a home remedy. Rosa's home was searched, revealing suspicious containers that later tested positive for traces of heavy metals. New evidence broke the case wide open. Forensic reports confirmed the poison's presence in the victim's blood at levels up to 250 units, far exceeding lethal doses. The police interviewed over 30 witnesses, including neighbors and hospital staff, who noted strange behavior from Sanghamitra and Rosa. A nurse reported Sanghamitra's oddly calm demeanor while Roshan struggled to breathe, and a neighbor saw Rosa disposing of food scraps in a hurry after Komal's death. The family driver, Rakesh, provided a crucial testimony. He identified Rosa as the one who gave him the tainted water, linking her directly to the poisoning attempts. The investigation uncovered a chilling timeline of planning. In August 2023, Sanghamitra had attempted suicide by cutting her veins, overwhelmed by alleged harassment from Roshan and his parents. Her despair turned to rage after her father's suicide in April, which she blamed on her in-laws' cruelty. Rosa, sensing an opportunity, allegedly approached Sanghamitra during this vulnerable period, proposing a plan to eliminate the Ritu family. Together, they researched poisons, initially considering datura, a toxic plant, but settling on thallium or arsenic for its stealth. Rosa's connections in Telangana, possibly through agricultural suppliers, gave them access to the substance, though police struggled to pinpoint the exact source due to the women's conflicting statements. The community's initial belief in a natural illness crumbled as police leaks reached the press. Media outlets, including India Today and the Indian Express, reported the case as a family massacre, fueling public fascination. Online forums buzzed with theories, some still clinging to supernatural explanations, while others speculated about a wider conspiracy involving Pramod or other relatives. The police, however, focused on Sanghamitra and Rosa, whose motives, revenge for Sanghamitra, greed for Rosa, aligned with the evidence. By October 18th, the investigation had enough to act. The question now was whether the police could bring these unlikely killers to justice, and what secrets would unravel in the process. The next phase of the story takes us to the arrests and the courtroom drama that followed. By mid-October 2023, the quiet village of Mahagaon in Gadchiroli, Maharashtra, was reeling from the deaths of 5 Kumbhare family members, Shankar, Vijaya, Roshan, Komal, and Varsha, all poisoned in a calculated plot. The police had zeroed in on 2 unlikely suspects: Sanghamitra Kumbhare, the grieving daughter-in-law, and Rosa Ramteke, a relative driven by greed. Now, the investigation was closing in, and the pursuit of justice was about to take center stage. This is how the Kumbhare poisoning case reached its resolution. The breakthrough came on October 18, 2023, when Gadchiroli police arrested Sanghamitra Kumbhare and Rosa Ramteke. The arrests were a dramatic turning point, executed after weeks of meticulous evidence gathering by 4 investigative teams. Superintendent of Police Neelatpal announced the charges under Section 302 of the Indian Penal Code: murder, a serious offense carrying a potential life sentence or death penalty. The police also charged the women with attempted murder for the poisoning of the family driver, Rakesh Madhavi, and a visiting relative who survived. The community, still grappling with grief, was stunned to learn that the killers were not outsiders, but family members who had sat among them, offering false comfort during the victim's final days. The arrests followed a cascade of evidence that left little room for doubt. Forensic reports from Nagpur's advanced labs confirmed high levels of a heavy metal poison, likely thallium or arsenic, in the victim's blood, with concentrations up to 250 units, far exceeding lethal thresholds. These findings were crucial, as thallium is rare in criminal cases and requires specialized testing, explaining why early autopsies missed it. Police searches of the Kumbhare and Ramteka homes uncovered containers with traces of heavy metals, linking Rosa directly to the poison storage. Digital evidence was equally damning. Searches for undetectable poisons and thallium effects were traced to Sanghamitra's device, conducted in July and August 2023, before the first deaths. Witness testimonies solidified the case. Rakesh Madhavi, the driver, provided a chilling account, identifying Rosa as the one who gave him a glass of water that left him writhing in pain. A hospital nurse testified that Sanghamitra had inquired about poison detection during Roshan's treatment, a question that seemed innocent at the time, but later revealed her intent to cover her tracks. Neighbors reported seeing Rosa dispose of food scraps suspiciously after Komal's death, and a relative recalled Sanghamitra's detached demeanor while her husband struggled to breathe. These accounts painted a picture of two women who had exploited their roles as caregivers to carry out their plan. During interrogations, Sanghamitra and Rosa confessed, though their statements were inconsistent about the poison's source. Sanghamitra admitted to researching thallium online, initially considering datura, but choosing a heavy metal for its stealth. She claimed her motive was revenge for years of harassment by her in-laws, compounded by her father's suicide in April 2023, which she blamed on their cruelty. Rosa, meanwhile, pointed to the 4-acre ancestral property dispute, confessing she wanted to eliminate the Kumbhares to secure the land for her husband, Pramod. The police suspected Pramod's involvement, but as of October 2023, he faced no charges, though investigations continued. The legal proceedings began swiftly in a Gadchiroli court, with prosecutors presenting a methodical case. They outlined the timeline of deaths, September 26th to October 15th, and detailed how the poison was administered in food and water, even during hospital transfers. A key piece of evidence was the herbal medicine ruse. Rosa had offered tainted water to Varsha en route to the hospital, ensuring her death. The prosecution leaned heavily on forensic data, showing how the poison's slow-acting nature allowed the women to maintain the illusion of a natural illness. Defense attorneys argued that the evidence was circumstantial, pointing to the lack of a confirmed poison source and inconsistencies in the women's confessions. They also suggested Sanghamitra's mental health struggles, including her August 2023 suicide attempt, warranted leniency. Courtroom testimonies were emotional. A surviving relative described the family's devastation, noting how trust had been shattered. The nurse's account of Sanghamitra's hospital inquiry drew gasps as it revealed her calculated mindset. The prosecution's strategy was to portray the crime as premeditated and ruthless, emphasizing the betrayal of family bonds. The defense countered by framing Sanghamitra as a victim of abuse driven to desperation, though this argument struggled against the weight of evidence. As of the latest reports from October 2023, no final verdict had been reached. The trial was ongoing, with the court awaiting additional forensic results to clarify whether the poison was thallium or arsenic, a detail critical to tracing its origin. Indian legal proceedings can be slow, especially in complex cases like this, and the outcome remained uncertain. However, the arrests and charges sent a clear message. Justice was being pursued, even in a remote corner of Maharashtra. The social impact was profound. Mahagaon's residents, already wary from Naxalite tensions, became distrustful of their neighbors, with some avoiding shared meals for fear of poisoning. The case dominated local and national media, with outlets like the Indian Express calling it a family massacre. Online discussions on platforms like X speculated about broader conspiracies, though police dismissed these as unfounded. The Kumbhare family's surviving members, including distant relatives, faced stigma and grief, with some relocating to avoid the village's scrutiny. The case also sparked debates about domestic abuse and property disputes, highlighting how these issues can escalate when left unaddressed. The resolution, while incomplete, brought a measure of closure. The police were praised for their diligence, overcoming forensic and logistical challenges in a resource-scarce region. For the public, the case was a grim reminder that danger can lurk within the family unit, disguised by familiarity. But what would the long-term fallout be, and what lessons could be learned from this tragedy? Even as the arrests brought the Kumbhare poisoning investigation to a close in 2023, the story's echoes continue to resonate. As of August 2025, nearly 2 years later, Sanghamitra Kumbhare and Rosa Ramteke remain in custody in Gadchiroli, with their trial still ongoing and no final verdict publicly available. Indian courts often handle such cases over extended periods, especially when forensic evidence and multiple testimonies are involved. This unresolved status has fueled reflections on justice, family dynamics, and societal vulnerabilities. Let's explore the aftermath and what this case teaches us. The long-term effects on the justice system highlight both strengths and gaps. The Gadchiroli police's multi-team approach demonstrated effective collaboration across states, from Maharashtra to Telangana, in tracing the poison's source. However, the reliance on specialized labs in Nagpur for thallium detection exposed delays in rural forensics. Experts in criminology have pointed to this case as an example of why India needs more decentralized forensic facilities, particularly in Naxal-affected areas like Gadchiroli, where resources are stretched thin. On a broader scale, it has contributed to discussions about legal reforms for poisoning cases, which are rare but complex due to their covert nature. Some advocates suggest mandatory timelines for toxicology reports to speed up trials and reduce the emotional toll on families. Society has been deeply impacted, especially in rural Maharashtra. The case shattered the illusion of unbreakable family ties, leading to a subtle shift in community behaviors. In Mahagaon, residents report being more cautious about property disputes, with some turning to local panchayats for mediation before conflicts escalate. The tragedy also amplified conversations about domestic abuse and mental health, themes central to Sanghamitra's motive. NGOs working in the region have noted an uptick in women seeking help for marital issues, inspired by media coverage of the case. Public calls for reforms have emerged, including tighter controls on hazardous chemicals like thallium, which is used in agriculture but can be obtained through informal channels. Online platforms and news outlets have kept the story alive, urging better education on poison symptoms to empower communities. Reactions from the victim's family have been marked by profound grief and isolation. Surviving relatives, including those who narrowly escaped poisoning, have largely stayed out of the spotlight. But anonymous statements reveal ongoing trauma. One relative shared with local media that the betrayal destroyed our sense of home, leading some to relocate. The community in Mahagaon responded with initial shock, organizing quiet vigils to honor the deceased. But lingering fear has strained social bonds. Public sentiment nationwide has been one of sympathy mixed with frustration over the slow justice process, with social media users calling for systemic changes to support vulnerable family members. What lessons stand out? First, addressing family conflicts early, through counseling or legal mediation, can prevent them from turning tragic. The Kumbhare case shows how property greed and unresolved abuse can intersect with deadly results. Second, awareness of subtle dangers, like slow-acting poisons, is vital. Simple steps like testing water sources or recognizing symptoms could make a difference in rural settings. Finally, prioritizing mental health support, especially for young brides in arranged marriages, is key to breaking cycles of despair. Recommendations for prevention include community programs on conflict resolution, enhanced training for rural doctors on toxicology, and stricter regulations on chemical sales. As we await closure in the courts, the Kumbhare story serves as a sobering reminder. Vigilance and compassion within families can safeguard against hidden threats. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a case that challenges us to look closer at the bonds we take for granted. If you found this insightful, like and subscribe for more true crime explorations.